I am here. I'm just in the background getting things ready. I should probably get some earbuds on because I am going to have some recordings playing a little bit later. Hello, everyone. This is Venus Brown here with a breakdown of and discussion of House of the Dragon Season 3, Episode 5. I am a little late. I apologize for that, but we were on a trip in Ireland and there was no way I was going to be able to do these breakdowns in Ireland. I had no access to the show whatsoever, so... Anyway, I'm going to go ahead, actually, before we start the breakdown, I missed some things, not much, but a little bit on last episode. I've been trying to put a kind of letter grade on the episodes, and last episode I forgot. I'm giving that episode a B-. It was good, but I thought it could have been significantly better, so good but not great. And yeah, I put it at a B- level. And also, I don't remember if I did the rest in peace section at the end, but let me get this in my notes. I don't think it was a whole lot of people that died last episode, but we had the shepherd that Daemon took out in replacement for Rhaena, and we had Kat's brother. I think I may have said something about it, but I don't remember. So those are our rest in peace for last episode. I will do the rest in peace for this episode at the end. At the end, after I've done the breakdown, after I've done the preview of episode 6, which I know is already out. I am getting to it. It's just going to take me a bit. I'm assuming that by the time the next episode comes out, I will be all caught up. So, no frets, no fear. I am working on it. I am getting it caught up just slowly. All right, so we're going to do our breakdown. We're going to do a preview of the next episode, and then I'll talk about my VIP, my piece of shit, best scene, worst scene, things like that. And I will do a rest in peace section at the very end. And I'll give you my letter grade if I remember it. I'm not going to tell you it now. Anyway, let's go ahead and get on with the breakdown. And remember, this is pre-recorded because I find it easier to do that way because I have a lot of like repeated things that I'll say and long gaps where I'm thinking things over and stuff like that. Sometimes I'll have a little brain fart and forget and just kind of sit there like trying to figure out what was I even talking about. So I do edit that stuff. Plus, if there's a book spoiler or anything in there, I try to put a notification that I have a spoiler in there, and I put little images in every now and then to indicate what we're actually talking about in the show. Let's go ahead and get started. Hello everyone, this is Venus Brown and I've got another breakdown for you for the House of the Dragon, Season 3, Episode 5, called Unbent Unbroken. When I heard that title, I thought, well, I doubt that title has to do with what we know it's from, which is the leader in Dorne, who was a princess at the time and refused to bend the knee to Aegon Targaryen in Aegon's conquest. And she still, to that very point that we are in this show, had never bent her knee, never bowed, and Dorne has never bent their knee or never bowed. Now, I don't know after this point if there is, I think there was some sort of agreement or another, but I don't feel like it was them bending their knee and bowing to the Targaryens. Still, apparently I was wrong, and that title is about that specific thing. So let's get into it. We start in some of Rhaenyra's leaders, the people from the north, the leadership of the Riverlands. They're all talking about this fucked up shit that Cole is doing. Burning bridges as they get there and setting fire to people's tents, things like that. They come to an agreement that they're going to have to play Cole's game. And what does that mean? Later on, we see they are building bridges and then burning them behind them. They are leaving spikes on the road that these horses are trotting on, and it is hurting them and killing Cole's ability to get past where he needs to go. Throughout the episode, we see people continue to trickle into Harrenhal trying to find Aemon, because apparently Rhaenyra has offered Harrenhal in exchange for Aemon's head. And every time they get up there, Atlas is there to greet them, tell them just how sick and tired she is of seeing all these many loads of troops coming up to try to find Aemon, who is not there, she says. And then she gives them this story about the building of Harrenhal, the fact that its bricks are seeped in the blood of soldiers, and gives them this whole story that sounds super creepy, like we've heard of Harrenhal in past episodes of Game of Thrones. She lays it on thick, and then towards the end, she picks up some sand and talks about how the castle is living and breathing, and then she throws the sand back behind her, and it kicks up a bunch of bats and just makes it look like she really is in control of these bats, like there is something magic going on and that she is a witch. And that word gets back to these other people. It is spreading this story about Harrenhal, about Alice Rivers, and I don't know that the story is necessarily all that accurate. I mean, sure, the building of Harrenhal, from what I understand, is pretty accurate. But is she magical? Is she a witch? Does she have control over those bats? Or did she just threw some rock and sand in the direction of the bats, which caused the bats to kick up and creep out some people that easily get creeped out from things like that? The sound of the wind whistling in the walls and other things echoing in the castle. Some of it could be real, but I highly suspect a lot of it is stories built up from things like this. But maybe some of it's true. Orwell, at the behest of Alicent, brings up some special tea for Helena, and I am so proud of her. She refused to take that tea. And I know, her having a son presents a whole nother load of problems. And that son would be in danger, and she would be in danger. Everybody would be in danger because he would definitely be a threat to the kingdom. But I will always uphold a woman's right to make that choice for herself. And she made the choice unequivocally that this was her and she was not going to give it up. No matter how much Alicent argued that it would present this child with a life of imprisonment, a life of danger, and a life that will likely end at being killed, it's still her choice. Really, pro-choice is not just about the right to abortion. It is about the right to make that decision for yourself while you are still early on in your pregnancy and you are not killing a baby. But I know a lot of people feel that is ending the life of an innocent. A lot of people feel that that is murdering a baby. But I will remind everyone again, as I usually do, that most abortions occur very early in the pregnancy, some of them before they've even reached the stage of fetus, but most of them before they have developed enough to have a heartbeat, to have developed into a human being. They have human DNA, yes, but they are not yet a human being. That's just my take on it. Everyone should have their own choice early on in pregnancy, whether they carry that pregnancy to term or not. After a certain point, no, they shouldn't just go do that. But at this point in history, most laws don't allow you to just have an abortion late on, unless there's some really bad thing going on with the baby, with the pregnancy, with the mother, or with both. Helena also tells us something else. Tells us that Aemon is in Harrenhal and he is burning, but not with fire. What does she mean by that? I don't really know. I've heard from other creators that maybe this is a burning in ice, burning from cold. I've also thought myself that maybe it is burning from infection, and then also the images in the show, burning from his memories, singed into his head of burning his brother. And then he wakes up to hear the news that Rhaenyra has claimed that he killed his brother Aegon with fire and that Aegon is dead. Now we know that's not true, but he doesn't. And he's been haunted for these last weeks or so, I guess. Images of Aegon burning in fire. We find out that Vhagar has flown off. I thought maybe Vhagar had been hidden or that Alice was using some illusion to hide her so that she wouldn't look like she was there. But no, Vhagar has flown off, and I kind of agree with Alice's idea that maybe she was spooked. We also find out that there's 2 new members to Rhaenyra's court, and both of them seem to be spreading rumors and gossip and judgment about a variety of people on the court, in King's Landing, in Flea Bottom, etc. Very judgmental people. Not surprising, but that is the kind of shit that they're talking about at this table. We see more continued fighting between Mysaris and Daemon, and then we see more fighting between Daemon and Rhaenyra. Not unusual, nothing new there. And then Rhaenyra finds out that Joffrey is here. Now my question is, Joffrey's there, where's the other kids? Because weren't they supposed to be traveling together? Why is Joffrey back and the other children were not spoken of? And Rhaenyra says that she will talk to him later, but by the end of the night, Rhaenyra still has not gone to talk to her child. She goes in after he's already fallen asleep to kind of look on him, but not actually talk to him. Now I can tell you from being a military brat when my dad has been gone that there were times I fell asleep before he got back, and I had no problem with being woken up in the middle of the night for him to tell me that he is home and for me to get a fucking hug from my dad. I say, Rhaenyra, you got the fucking time. You're the fucking mommy. You need to go over there and give your fucking kid a hug even if they're sleeping. But she didn't. I think Rhaenyra has some pent up emotions in there that she doesn't want to deal with, isn't ready to deal with, and that is the real reason she did not go to see her child until the end of the night. Now, after Orwell had brought that tea up to Helena and Alicent, Mysaris definitely took notice, and so she went to worm her way in to whatever was going on with Alicent and Helena. And Alicent played it off like it was her that was pregnant after her initial trying to throw Mysaris off did not work. And she stood there in front of Mysaris and drank that tea as though she was taking it for herself, but it wasn't doing anything to her or anybody else other than making her stomach upset, because even if there's no baby in there, that tea is still going to be doing its thing to your system. Daemon is getting very worried because there are gold cloaks that are being killed in King's Landing. He first found out about 2 of them, and then he was witness right after a couple more had been killed. And you see one of the little birds had watched the whole thing and then goes and runs back to one of the other guys that we've seen before, who was one of Alicent's soldiers. So obviously not good news. She goes, spreads the word to him. He sends the word off by pigeon to Ormond Hightower, who continues with his plans, falling more trees to try to build up some resistance to the outside and telling people to fall as many trees as they possibly can. But either way, he's continuing his brainwashing of his ward and making sure that his ward is being taught the important things, all of the Hightower history, but making sure to exclude most of the Targaryen history, because we don't want him knowing about that stuff. We want him focusing on the boring shit that most kids aren't gonna fucking really care all that much about, but ignore all the fucking cool shit because he thinks that that is part of this kid's tinged bloodline. And then he goes on to talk about Princess Myrtle, which I had brought up earlier, and that story is a very engaging, interesting story. I definitely can see why the kid is very interested in that, but he also makes some very important points. When Ormond is talking about this princess, doesn't that make her a hero? And he doesn't really answer that. He goes on to excuse that Aegon had managed to conquer almost all of the lands except for Dorne, and to say that as long as you are intelligent and you use that against these beastly people, then you still stand a chance, which is all fine fine and dandy, but she was the only one. And I want to express that she was a female. This guy who has made a big stink about a female being put on the throne is praising this female who managed to thwart the whole Aegon conquest. Then we see Alice talking to Helena again about trying to get out of there. So again, she's trying to escape with Helena. She tells her plan, but she also says that she's gonna leave Helena's child there, and Helena ain't having that. And she goes on to try to make it sound like we'll be totally all right and they'll be able to get her back later. And Helena's like, yeah, you turn away every time you lie to me. Just right on to her. I'm so glad that we're finally getting some more lines from her. I think most of the things Helena has to say are very important, and you ignore them at your peril, which Alicent is going to do later on in the episode. Ignore more of Helena's words. We see Adam and Bela, which I am so glad that we got to see Bela and we got to hear what was going on with her, because I said before I was very concerned that she was missing and that she has a lot going on in her heart and soul, and we don't know how well she's doing. Now we can hear from the commentary that she is skipping food, that she is just busting her ass trying to find Vhagar, but she's not really taking care of herself. And that's not surprising to me at all, and I don't blame her at all. They say that Vhagar has been continuously evading them, that the place that they were is in the Trident, and that he hasn't been there for a couple weeks, so we know that at least a couple weeks has gone by. Beyond that, we don't know a whole lot about the timeline from when Aemon got injured and Aemon took over Harrenhal, but at least 2 weeks. Aemon wakes up in the castle having more nightmares, and he asks Alice Rivers if he's a prisoner here, and she conveniently says nothing, doesn't say a word, which may speak louder than any words she could have said. But then again, the word prisoner can have several connotations. Prisoner as being held captive in this castle, prisoner as being a prisoner in his own mind, prisoner as being a prisoner of these horrible memories that are plaguing his dreams, prisoner of himself being unwilling to let himself just be a person without associating his entire identity with the dragon Vhagar. And then we see Aemon opening up to Alice Rivers because she's playing that motherly figure for him, which he always so badly needs and so badly wants. He's so broken about his past. He's talking about how much he used to deify his brother and think so highly of him, and that his mother still just loved him so much more, which is not true. But then we get the other side with Aegon talking about how much he felt ashamed because of how great his brother was and how much his mother loved him so much more, which also isn't true, because guess what? Alicent at this point doesn't have enough love for either of you to keep you both alive, but she does have enough love for Helena to get her the fuck out of there. But it was definitely interesting to hear this back and forth between these two boys that have these deluded ideas about how their childhood was, about who loved who most, and about who was treated the best and treated the worst and all of this other shit. And then Larys eventually gets so sick and tired of hearing Aegon whine and complain about how everything's everybody else's fault and how he's being treated so terribly and how he had the shit end of the stick all his life because of Aemon. And Larys is like, no, dude, you had every fucking privilege. You were the first son. You had the best nights, the best training, the best schooling, the best of everything. You could have risen to greatness, and you chose to fucking drink it away and fuck it away and not do anything to fucking take care of your people. Like, you aren't just a bad king, you are a bad fucking person. And I was so fucking glad to see somebody fucking put him in his goddamn shoes and him to actually listen. Like, that's the important thing. He actually had to fucking sit there and listen, and he did. We got a little bit of commentary from both of them about Sunfire, and I had said Silverwing before. We're not talking about Silverwing. Aegon's dragon is Sunfire, not Silverwing. So sorry about that. But we didn't get enough information from their talk to really know one way or another, is Sunfire alive or is Sunfire not alive? I still think Sunfire's alive. I was half expecting expecting when Aegon was going on about telling Larys to just go ahead and say that Sunfire's dead or whatever, and that we're gonna have to do all this and that and the other thing, that Larys would actually say, well, actually, I kind of went back and investigated, and it seems like maybe Sunfire is alive. But no, he didn't say anything about that. That's okay. I will give him some time. Then we see Daemon and Rhaenyra sitting at the candles where they do their spiritual religious prayers and things like that, and she convinces Daemon to join her, and they proceed to have a serious discussion. And they start out in English, but then when they see people are watching and listening, they switch to Valyrian, which I don't blame them, and go back and forth, and they both make some very valid points. And I know that this is to indicate that Rhaenyra is getting paranoid, but I'm still going to reiterate that she has a right to be paranoid, and the stuff that is going on, especially the stuff that Daemon is so concerned about, gives her very huge reason to be paranoid. And she's not wrong. There are important people missing, important dragons missing, and people ending up dead that are supposed to protect themselves in King's Landing. This is a big deal. This is very important, and she has a right to be paranoid about it. We go back to Aegon and Larys, and guess what? Fucking Tywin Lannister is actually alive. So another welcome back. Tywin Lannister is alive, and he seems to be doing quite well, frankly. And then we're back with Alicent and Helaena. This is the part where I said Alicent really needs to be listening and taking seriously what fucking Helaena says. And she says that she needs to go out to see the moon. And Alicent mostly ignores her, says that she's gonna have to be satisfied with just looking out the window. But I really feel like Alicent should really be paying attention to what fucking Helaena is saying and trying to do whatever she can to take her very seriously when she says stuff like this. Anytime she says anything cryptic, it's usually fucking important. We have more people showing up at the doorstep of Harrenhal, this time climbing the cliffside up to the back door. And Alice is like, so fucking tired of this. They go on to speculate whether this is a witch or just some imbecile, and then they fucking attack her, and those guys definitely got more than they fucking bargained for. And not only is Alice not gonna put up with some stupid idiots trying to attack her, but fucking Aemon is there and fucking butchers these people. So goodbye, idiots. We won't be seeing you again. Ta-ta for now. Back with Aegon, Larys, and Tywin. The guy in charge of the place that they've been at looks sus of what's going on, and you can see he's trying to get to the bag over by Aegon. He does. He pulls out Aegon's crown and then tries to confront him about saying he's Gregor, and Aegon wastes no fucking time at all and just stabs him in the gut. Fucking kills him to the point that he's got fucking blood gushing out of his mouth. While Larys and Tywin look on, Larys seemingly just very frustrated, and Tywin, I don't know, but it was a great show. It was a great fucking show. Daemon finds out that they have a suspect for what's been going on with these gold cloaks dying, and he proceeds to torture, which he does very well, and he ends up getting information. There is this coin that they were offered, and that these people have been told to go ahead and kill these gold cloaks to show their loyalty to the king. And Daemon's like, the king? And he says Aegon, and they're like, no, not Aegon. And he pulls out this coin. Newly appointed King Daeron, appointed by Ormond, because Ormond totally has the right to declare King of Westeros. But we've seen things like this before in Game of Thrones. Lots of people will claim that they're kings, will have other people claim that they're kings or queens or whatever, whether it's legitimate or not, whether people should be following them or not, it doesn't matter. People want somebody to believe in, and at this point, they're like, hey, we're Hightowers and we don't want to be here with Rhaenyra running the kingdom. Now this guy is giving us a Hightower to believe in, so we'll go along with that. Back in the Riverlands, Cole is continuing to push on no matter how many people die, no matter how many animals die, no matter matter how dire the situation. Gawain is like trying to reason with him, trying to get him to fucking let up. But Cole just shows his hand and makes it very clear that he intended from the fucking beginning to just walk them to their death. He felt they were all going to die anyway, and no amount of reasoning that Gawain does is going to fucking get through to him. So eventually Gawain finally leaves, while Cole continues to try to walk all his fucking troops to their death. Like, what kind of leader are you when your entire goal is to walk your fucking men to their death? What the hell? And he thinks that they're going to sing stories about him and this is going to give him honor and all this shit, but nothing he's doing is honorable, and it isn't going to fucking make anybody think that he's honorable. From what I understand, there are no stories and songs being sung about the great Cole. He squandered what was given to him and complained about it like it was the most awful thing on earth. Like he has nothing, like he will never have anything. Oh God, he's had to be a servant to all these people, but he's never done anything other than just fucking swing whichever way the wind blew and follow whoever will fucking give him the goddamn desire that he wants. And it has nothing to do with his honor. He has been so fucking dishonorable almost the entire fucking show. And we get to the very end, Allison and Helena, they find a way out of the room because we remember there are several spots in that castle where there are trap doors that go behind the walls to pathways that are back there. But some of those pathways are very dark. They don't have lighting in them. They don't have preparation to create lighting in them with your torch or anything like that. They're not manned. There's nobody back there except in certain parts of those caverns, and the doors close behind them. They're blocked in on the other side because somebody's bricked those holes up, and then the lamp falls. And when it fell, I didn't know if it was going to set something on fire or if it went out. I think the idea is that it goes out, which means that they are there in the dark. They have no light, and they're in the middle of these caverns where nobody is there. Barely anybody ever goes in those. How are they going to be found? The same time, we see Gawain leave Cole while Cole is trying to give them one of his freaking speeches so that they can continue on walking to their death. And we see Damon looking for the gold cloaks and finding a bunch of them at a dinner table set up like the Last Supper with the words in blood written, "A feast for traitors." And that's how the show ended. Just insane. I guess it's time for you to go back to my live self. All right, so that is my breakdown for that episode. I did feel like it was insane, especially towards the end, but a lot of the stuff with Cole leading his troops, just getting them killed over and over again, getting all those horses killed. Sure, he didn't know that those claws feet or whatever it was were on the ground, but he just keeps going. He keeps dragging his people with him and refuses to stop. And I understand the desire not to want to give up, but then when Gawain talks to him, finds out that no, like this guy pretty much is like, we were gonna die anyway. I'm just walking everybody to their inevitable deaths. Because what, he's gonna get some honor from it? But from what I know, he doesn't get honor from it. And none of those guys are getting any honor from it. So he's just squandering all their lives and squandering their deaths, because most of those soldiers want an honorable death, and that's not what they're getting. Anyway, let's see. So I'll start out with my letter grade for the episode, which was a B+. I really enjoyed this episode. I enjoy like learning about some of this kind of guerrilla warfare that they're using. I don't like the fact that they're using it, but it is something that happens. And it is interesting to me. It is more interesting than seeing a bunch of people just shooting at each other and fighting each other constantly. I also enjoyed like learning more of the information. We know that Rhaenyra's council has always been chaotic and fucked up, so I don't expect that to change. But the way that it's fucked up has shifted, and that was interesting for me to see the way that things are going with these little battles and stuff, and a lot of the decisions that have been made is also very interesting to me. So B plus for that, just because the intrigue and finding out new things and getting some more of the dropped threads being woven back into the story that George R.R. Martin had complained about. Well, I don't know that he necessarily complained about the cats, but some of us have definitely complained about the cats. So it was nice to see that put back in there. Not exactly the same as it was, but still. All right, so first, we're going to do my favorites and least favorites, starting with my VIP. All right, so just hold on a sec. Okay, so my VIP for the episode is Eamon. I mean, I almost never give Eamon VIPs for much of anything because I have just a really deep dislike for his character. But I do know that he is a very good fighter. He is very good at many of the things he does. Yes, most of his identity is bent on trying to just like emulate what he believes Damon is, but he still, because he has done that almost his entire life, even though he's not exactly right about who Damon is, it has formed him into a very good soldier, a very knowledgeable person, a very tactical and smart person for the most part. He's just also psychotic and also lacks certain empathy and shit like that. Anyway, so my VIP was Eamon because when Alice starts getting attacked and people start to try to have their way with her, she does defend herself. She does try to fight them off, but you've got like 4 guys there, and Eamon comes out and he just starts butchering them all. So even though I don't condone butchering a bunch of people in most situations, in that situation, I'll take it. I mean, you're in Westeros. You're not in nowadays modern civilization. You are in Westeros, and Westeros is not a nice place, and these guys are fucking taking advantage of a woman. I don't give a damn if they think she's a witch. I don't give a damn if they think she's evil. I don't give a damn what they think about her. It's fucking wrong, and it needs to be retaliated against in as awful and horrid and terrifying a way as what they were doing to her. So I was very, very glad that Eamon actually stepped in and defended her. Okay, my piece of shit of the episode is Cole. I know I keep giving piece of shit to Cole because Jesus Christ, I'm so fucking sick and tired of him, and he's so awful. And what he's doing now is just, it goes beyond how awful he's been throughout the series. Like, he literally opened up that has literally from the beginning been marching all his troops to their death because he wants some fucking honor, because he wants people to sing songs to him. And my thought, and I think a lot of people think, the real reason, not just his fake honor and shit, is that he's trying to avoid dragons. He knows that as long as he's doing this underhanded guerrilla warfare, he's most likely avoiding dragon warfare, which he's so completely terrified of. And I don't blame him. I don't blame him for being terrified, but I do blame him for intentionally using that as an excuse to march himself and all his troops to their death. That, to me, is fucking appalling. Like, I get that when you're in war, you always have the chance to die. There's always things that could happen that may warrant that kind of sacrifice. But your goal in the entire thing should not be to just march all of your troops to their death. Not in my opinion. No. All right. My favorite scene, when Larys tells Aegon off about how incredibly fucking pampered he is, about how he's had every fucking privilege, had every fucking best thing on the face of the fucking earth, and he sees none of it as a benefit. He always is complaining. He's always blaming other people for his shit, when he's done shit repeatedly to squander his fucking privileges, to squander his ability to make something of himself. And like Larys said, like, he could have risen to greatness, but again, he just squandered all of it, fucked it all away, blew it all on fucking drinking and getting high and screwing off with his friends, but never taking his shit seriously. So I was so glad to see Larys really lay into him, and for him to actually listen, to actually take that shit in, and not necessarily try to do anything with it in this episode, but I'm hoping it will help him in the future to just try to be a little bit of a better person. I was also very glad that he made the point that he's not just an awful king, that he's an awful person. That was great. Okay, my worst favorite scene. Let's see. Oh, when Alicent, I'm gonna say it's two least favorite scenes. They're not exactly tied, but they're almost. First, when Alicent tries to force this moon tea on Helena, when she's expressed explicitly that she does not want to abort this baby, that she wants to keep it, that it is hers, and Alicent just keeps trying to force the issue. That was very, very upsetting. I know shit like this happens. As I've said in my breakdown, pro-choice is not just about the right to abortion. Pro-choice is about the right to your autonomy, your right to choose. Early on in pregnancy, when they are not yet babies, when they are not yet past the stage of fetal development, when they are still very early in development, they don't have a heartbeat, that kind of thing. Like, to me, that stuff should be based on a individual's autonomy, whether they have to use, whether they choose to use their body to maintain that pregnancy. It's up to them. And if you take that from them, I see that as something very sinister. One way or another, Helena wanted to keep that baby, trying to force her to get rid of it, even under the dire circumstances that we know that they will be in, that we know that that baby will be in from the time that it's born, or even before it's born. We've seen how they treated, Daenerys on Game of Thrones when they found out that she was a threat to the throne, before she was ever a real threat to the throne, and they wanted to just massacre her. We've seen that. We know that. But that is not their decision. That is not somebody else who's trying to prevent that decision to make, unless they are the person carrying the baby, carrying the pregnancy. So, yeah. Either way, a person's autonomy is very fucking important. And just because Helena has some issues and challenges with being maybe a little bit neurodivergent, but having certain spiritual issues going on in her head and stuff like that, does not mean you should take her autonomy away. Just because a person is a kid doesn't mean you should take their autonomy away. Because no, a kid cannot make all their decisions for them, but they should at least be able to voice what their choices are and have the adults that are in charge of them take that into consideration. At least. at least. You should try to allow people to have their autonomy. Anyway, and that includes disabled people, people with mental challenges, all of that. You need to be doing what you can to try to allow them to have their autonomy while still considering the best interest of them, but not completely stomping and trampling all over their autonomy. All right. My worst favorite scene. No, I did that already. Okay, so that was the aborticent tea. Also, I was thinking that tied with that is Allison ignoring Helena when she has these cryptic things that she says. She says she needs to go out and see the moon. And Allison doesn't completely ignore it, but she mostly just brushes it off and says, you're going to have to be satisfied with just looking at it through the window. Like, I realized that some fucked up shit happened that day. They tried to escape twice, and they probably had the people's eagle eyes out on them and everything. But she still could have tried to make arrangements with the fucking people in charge, with the troops that are watching over them, so that Helena could go outside and see the moon physically outside like she wanted. And instead, Allison does what she usually does when she hears Helena say stuff that's cryptic. And she kind of brushes it off and ignores it. Sometimes Allison will actually pay a little bit of mind to it. She's more likely to pay mind to what Helena says than either of her brothers or most of the other people around her. But I just really feel like she needs to take it a lot more seriously. She needs to pay a lot more attention, take it a lot more seriously. And I also noticed when Maceris was up there and Helena said she needed to see the moon, Maceris looked like she had some questions or suspicions about Helena, like maybe she might have some clue what's actually going on with Helena, or with the whole thing about wanting to see the moon. She looked like her interests were piqued and like she might have some fucking clue about that. So I thought that was very interesting. Okay, so that's the end of my favorites and least favorites. I think I'm giving a welcome back to Bela and Tylan. I don't have a lot of personal care one way or another for Tylan. I think he is the much better of the twins, and his other twin definitely is dead. So I'm not opposed to him being alive, and I wouldn't care really that much if he were still dead. But he is alive, and I'm okay with that. And with Bela, like I expressed concern last week that we had not seen her, and I was concerned with like her mental state and how she is doing. And I think there is reason to be concerned. Not eating and busting your ass constantly and refusing to take care of yourself. I think some of it's going to be expected in the situations like she's in right now, but it's still something you got to be careful of, because that can cause her on a much worse downward spiral. So got to watch out for that. And even though she doesn't want to eat, it might be a good idea, like Alan was doing, to keep every now and then pushing the issue, even though that might be irritating to her. She needs to fucking eat. You can't just go starving yourself because you're fucking worried and upset and you feel guilty and all of this other, and you're in grief and you feel like you fucked something up and you feel like your life that was on a direct path to something great is now completely derailed. And like she said, the idea that she could get fucking hitched up with some old fucking lord piece of shit, like, that is appalling all in itself. That's scary. And that definitely is something that she is in that position where that could very easily happen. So I feel for her, but people should be looking out for her. mental interest. No, they don't have therapists, but they have ways to they should have ways to kind of help people through shit like this. And making sure she fucking eats, takes care of herself, making sure that she's taking care of hygiene, that she's not just busting her ass the whole time and not doing anything else to take care of herself. Okay, let's see. I think I had a couple other... thank you, Helena, for making your voice heard. There are so many times where Helena she kind of, somebody will try to shut her down or ignore her or brush her off, and she'll just kind of mute herself after that. She'll just kind of step away, back off, and not make her voice heard, not make her interest heard. And she made a very big point to make it very clear how she felt this time, at least twice, about the aborticent and about leaving her child behind. Both of them, she made it very clear what she wanted, what her choice was. And I was very, very glad to see that. And I did not say this in the breakdown because I had forgotten about it and I didn't write it down. But I was very excited to see the cats running around the keep. So in the book, this might be a book spoiler, but it's kind of out of the bag, so to speak, a little bit now. In the book, though, it was a little bit different. Otto Hightower actually had the idea for sending like millions of cats loose around the keep to try to get rid of the rat problem. Well, this time it's switched from Otto Hightower to Alan's decision, and Alan's decision makes sense. What he said, what he suggested makes total sense. He's like, when we're on the ships, we just have cats to take care of this. And that makes total sense. And it's a good idea. It's a good way to kind of take care of a problem like that without having to really focus on it too much. And then your main concern is taking care of the cats, making sure the cats are fed. But then the cats take care of the rodent problem, which is a much worse problem than trying to keep cats fed. So I thought that was great. Did I have anything else on here? Oh, we got to do the rest in peace. Let me see if there's anything else, though. Oh, you know what? Oh, at the beginning, I was going to go over some of the themes that I saw in the show, and I did not do that. So the themes I saw were the games of war, these guerrilla warfare tactics and shit like that, and other things like Rhaenyra saying that she was going to offer Harrenhal to anybody who beheads Aemon, basically. So that is part of those games of war. It doesn't work very well, but it is. Bad choices, which I think that was a bad choice. I think Daemon really should have brought to Rhaenyra Alice Rivers' request for Harrenhal. Somebody also should have reminded her about the promise that her son had already made to the other lady that is now on her council, so that she could weigh the options and try to decide how to mitigate that. Like she could decide one way or another. Do I want to opt to give Harrenhal to Alice Rivers, who's been living there for, some people think centuries, but we'll just say a long, long time, longer than anybody else there? Do we want to give it to this other person that your son promised it to, even though your son is now dead? Do we want to still offer to give it to whoever brings Aemon's head to her? You can weigh the options and then try to come up with something to mitigate it for those people that you're not opting to give it to. But Daemon never even brought it to Rhaenyra, so she doesn't even know that it's a thing that was that needed to be addressed at all. So that sucks, and I think that was a bad decision. I think that it should have at least been broached so that she would know that at least Daemon's trying. At least it's being entertained. At least it's being considered, but no, it's not considered. So she feels just slighted and like she's being ignored, and like she offered all this help. She did all this stuff that is to Rhaenyra's benefit, and she's getting nothing in return. And most people want something, even if it's just to feel good about doing that thing. They want something. And in her case, I think just feeling good about doing the right thing was not what she was not her goal. That was not her intent. So anyway, bad choices. There's lots of bad choices being made. But also, I would also reiterate that there's a lot of choices that need to be made where there are no good choices. So even though she's making bad choices and other people in the show are making bad choices, there don't seem to be a lot of apparent good choices. So maybe they're doing the best they can in the situation. Maybe they're not. But when you have a whole bunch of bad choices and you inevitably have to pick one of those bad choices and it's going to have bad consequences, what are you going to do about it? Hopefully you try to mitigate them as much as you can. But I think some of the bad choices being made are definitely like picking really bad choices when they could have picked a choice that was a little bit better, that wouldn't have been quite so awful. And hindsight is 2020. They're not going to necessarily know some of this stuff's going on, but some of it should be understood from a war perspective, from a taking care of a kingdom perspective, from a leading over your people and your council and your other leadership's perspective. Some of this stuff should have been known and understood. And we still have these bad choices being made that are even worse than other choices they could have made, even though all the choices seem to be pretty bad. All right, and I said that they need to be apparent because not all the good choices are going to be apparent to these people. There's a reason that royalty have to have counsel, that they have advisors, that they have people doing a bunch of different jobs, because they cannot do it all. Some of them are better at doing a lot of different things at one time than others, but none of them can do it all. They all need some fucking help. They all need people addressing certain issues and advising them and keeping them abreast of what's going on. The other thing was the autonomy. That was definitely an issue that we saw for multiple people. For Alice Rivers, for Helena, kind of for Alicent, because Alicent is asking Mysaria to keep her mouth shut about what's going on, and Orwell. And Orwell is also like, look, I can't keep doing this for you. Like, there is this sense of autonomy that these people need to be able to make their own decisions for themselves. And sometimes you also need to look to others to keep their mouth shut so that you can make your own decisions for yourself. Because what happens when Mysaria does go to Rhaenyra about what happened? Then Rhaenyra is going to clamp down on Alicent and Helena. And she may get more violent and more awful with them. So then you're really interfering with their autonomy. So that request for Mysaria to keep her mouth shut is also a request for them to be allowed to have some autonomy in this prisoner situation that they're in. Okay, another thing is the POV, the perspectives of different people. We saw that especially with this thing with Aegon's perspective versus Aemon's perspective for how they were raised and how people felt about them. So that was definitely a theme. The theme of mystery and cryptic messages, and trying to figure out what is going on. Where is Vhagar? What happened with Aemon? What is going on with all these people? How are things going to be different in the keep with all these cats running around? Because before it was rats, Now it's cats, and even though the cats are performing a very important purpose, they're still also getting under people's feet. I mean, when I had a dog, when I've had various cats, that was definitely one thing is they like to get under your stuff, get under your feet. Like when you're busy trying to take care of stuff, they frequently want attention, but they also like to like wrap around your feet and make you feel like you're getting tripped up and stuff like that. So even though it is helping with the rat situation, it may be a little irritating to some people. Plus, some people have allergies. Even though I kept a lot of cats when I was young, I have always had allergies to cats. Hay fever, like I get itchy, watery eyes, I get hives. If they scratch me, it really, really irritates my skin a lot. Makes me more itchy. It makes my eyes, like all of it just like gets exacerbated. So definitely with cats, but never with dogs. I've never had allergies with dogs, only cats. I do have allergies to dust and mold and stuff like that though, and pollen. So anyway, let's see. Spies and traitors, we definitely are seeing a lot of that, and we are seeing the consequences, because I think we were seeing some stuff with spies and traitors before, but now we're seeing the consequences, like the very dire consequences of these spies and traitors being both in your midst and having control of the people that are in your midst, having communication with the people that are in your midst. So even people that are not there are able to control what's going on the ground in the places they're not at. So, yeah. And people meddling in things. So we saw that with Miss Sarah meddling and stuff. We saw with Orwell saying, I'm gonna stop, like I can't keep doing this because people have their eyes on me. So while I might want to meddle in certain things, I have to be very careful because people could be, it's already happened multiple times on both sides with people trying to kill me. So it's not something that I can risk that much. So yeah, and I think that's all. I said that this episode I gave a B plus. I think I said that. So I do. I give it a B plus. I really liked this episode. It's not the greatest, so I didn't give it an A or an A plus, but I gave it a B plus because I did think it was pretty good. I do think it gets the ball moving. We do get to see some of the war stuff, even though it's not big battles and stuff. We're seeing what's going on with these guerrilla warfare tactics. We're seeing what's happening with the people. Oh yeah, and I gotta do the rest in peace. And I thought it was funny when I was looking online for who they said died. There's a couple articles out there that will tell you who died in what episode. And there were more people that died in this episode than most of the other episodes. Yet that article basically listed one group, which was Luther Largent and his gold cloaks. And I was like, but that's not all who died. So let's see. We got Sir Luther Largent. And I think at least a dozen of his gold cloaks. Not all of them. And one of the articles I saw said it was like all his gold cloaks. But I don't think so. That wasn't all his gold cloaks at that dinner table. But it was a lot of them. I think it was like 9 other people or something like that. So lots of his gold cloaks, at least a dozen. The rogue sellsword that Aegon killed, he's dead. And the guy that Daemon and Luther Largent were torturing, Luther Largent killed at Daemon's behest. So that, I think originally when I wrote the list, I also had put the shepherd down, but that I think was actually from last week. So that is, as far as I know, all the rest in peace for right now. I still am up in the air as to whether Sunfire is alive or dead. I think Sunfire's alive. So we're not gonna give Sunfire a rest in peace yet. I'm holding out hope that he's like in some kind of dormant state. I keep saying dormant, but I know that's not the real word for it. Like like when bears go and take shelter and they just hibernate. Like maybe it's in some kind of hibernative state. But yeah, that is all I've got for you this for now. I am going to get right to episode 6. It's gonna take me a little bit. Like all of these episodes have taken me have taken me at least a couple days to get to this part. So at least give me a couple days, and then hope. In my opinion, I should definitely be caught up before the next episode gets out. But I'm thinking either the day after. I'm thinking tomorrow or no. I'm thinking the day after tomorrow. Hopefully, I can get to episode 6 breakdown. And oh yeah, let me go to my end screen because I do have other things that I need to be addressing for my schedule. It's not specifically House of the Dragon. My Testament live reads are done. I finished that book, so those are done. That is going to be removed from my schedule next time you see me. And I have a book that I plan on starting reading, but not yet. It's going to be a bit. And then I'm doing the Tokyo Ghoul Part 2 reactions. Those will continue every Friday. When those are done, I will be switching to Demon Slayer, I think, or Demon Hunters. It's either Demon Hunters or Demon Slayer. It's an anime. So I'll be switching to that. I'm still doing these House of the Dragon breakdowns. Right now I have it listed as being now, because I don't have a specific day that I'm doing these because I'm trying to catch them up. Once I get them caught up, I will go back to doing them once a week. Night of the Seven Kingdom reactions are every Friday. And when that is done, I'm not sure exactly what I'm switching to, but I have some things that I've been working on. I will let you know probably the next time that I do one of these breakdowns. I'll probably let you know what I am going to be switching my Night of the Seven Kingdoms reactions to once that is done, because that is a very short season. So anyway, that's all I got for you. I'll see you when I see you. Bye.